Final Destination is a fun franchise that has been able to consistently deliver the goods. Each entry makes small evolutions and variations while maintaining a consistent identity. The only truly bad film in the franchise is the fourth one, with the rest at least being short, enjoyable horror movies. The third one is my personal favorite. 14 years since the fifth film, the franchise returned this weekend with Final Destination Bloodlines, expanding the idea of death moving down his kill list to future generations, whole families that should never have been born. The film was written by Guy Busick and Laurie Evans-Taylor, and directed by Zach Lipovsky and Adam Stein. The film has been positively received by critics, becoming the best-reviewed film in the franchise. This is emblematic of something I've noticed recently. Possibly due to generational shifts, it seems the mainstream film critics have become more welcoming and tolerant of horror films. Shifting from the days of Siskel and Ebert's passionate tirades against slasher films, we now have films like Saw X, Thanksgiving, and now Final Destination Bloodlines receiving approval from the overwhelming majority of critics. Of course, art house horror films like the ones produced by A24 make sense when they receive mainstream appraisal, but there has definitely been a shift on the bloodier side of the genre as well. What was once described as being beneath serious critique as torture porn or dismissed as stupid teenage horror movies have now been received much more generously. It makes looking at things like Rotten Tomatoes scores for horror franchises such a bizarre experience, with films like Saw X having remarkably higher scores than films like Saw 6. Final Destination Bloodlines, being the highest scoring film in the franchise according to Rotten Tomatoes, is therefore misleading for multiple reasons. One is the major shift in film critics' response to the horror genre, along with the general problems already inherent in such a gamified score system for film criticism in the first place. With all that being said, what did I think of the film? Let's get into my thoughts. Let's explore Final Destination Bloodlines. When watching this film, a comparison with Osgood Perkins' The Monkey came to mind. They are both films that feature elaborate death scenes that are sparked by a supernatural force. Both have family connections and dysfunctions as a central element of the narrative. They also both use these deaths as fuel for dark comedy. The similar films being released both in the first half of this year is fun, as they are both enjoyable films, and use the bleak subject matter to craft some hilarious scenes. That's something that stuck out to me about this film. It's very funny while still maintaining a level of tension and anxiety that make for an effective mix. The opening premonition scene is the highlight of the film. We get such an effective build-up that ratchets up the tension while at the same time getting us to care about this couple. I was drawn to Iris as a character and found her experience to be so fascinating. The Sky Tower setting was a great choice, and the filmmaking felt very calculated, smart, and in control, which made it stand out. The premonition of the deaths was perfectly subtle at first, before all hell broke loose. Once it did, there were some effective death scenes, but I also felt that we saw the first problems with the film prop up. This was in the usage of CGI on some of the deaths, which stood out a lot. This is a major problem with modern horror films. CGI is overused in elaborately gory death scenes, which undermines their effectiveness. This was a problem in The Monkey as well, which was disappointing. This is understandable with many aspects in that scene, why they would have to utilize CGI as much as they did, but it made the extreme splatter of blood that we saw in some of the deaths feel less satisfying. Practical effects would have made that piano death that much more satisfying. However, despite this critique, I still felt that the premonition opening scene was awesome. It stacks up as one of the best of the franchise for sure, and I was very interested in following Iris' story. We then jump way into the future and follow a less interesting main character. Stephanie's story is less engaging, even if the Bloodlines concept is a cool twist on the formula. The family dynamic that is brought into this film is enjoyable and provides some of the best dark humor in the film. I especially liked the character Eric. Most of the actors did an okay job in the family, but I did feel that Tio Briones' performance as Stephanie's younger brother Charlie was very underwhelming. I'm sure the fact that the film was dealing with family and themes of trauma helped it with critics, and I think these themes were well developed, but the main treat with this film is the deaths. They delivered the goods again. The deaths are well executed and gruesome, they are set up well and created some new fears for me. This is what the Final Destination series does so well. It creates environments filled with potential dangers, ratchets up the anxiety, and then delivers iconic kills. The death scene in the hospital is my favorite by far and showcases some great creativity and filmmaking chops. The hospital was also the location where we got the awesome Tony Todd scene. He has such a great presence, and I felt his scene was beautifully executed. The way they explained his character's backstory and tied this entry to the rest of the franchise was tastefully done, and I loved the way that it felt like a tribute to everything he's meant, not only to this franchise, but to horror as a whole. Tony Todd is so awesome, and he will be missed. Once we left the hospital, the film's third act was disappointing, feeling like a downhill slide to a lackluster finale. It all felt too rushed and poorly executed. With the side characters gone, we had to follow our less interesting lead continue to struggle against death. In some ways, I wish we could have followed Iris' story. The ending of the movie felt stupid and cheap in a way that undermined what came before. I understand the concept of the series and of the film, but it doesn't excuse how poorly the finale was executed and how bad it looked. That being said, overall I still enjoyed the film. I think it's a good horror movie that's deserving of the praise it's received. It's not my favorite Final Destination film, but it definitely belongs amongst the best. I think the CGI, some of the acting and characters in the finale were blemishes on a film that I would still wholeheartedly endorse and recommend you go and see. I can't wait to see what they do with the next film in this ridiculous series and what new fears they can cause me to adopt. That's all for today's video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like, hit subscribe, and don't forget to ring the bell for notifications so you don't miss any of my videos. Let me know in the comments below what your favorite Final Destination is. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next time.